You know, most people are terrified when they spot that first gray hair in the mirror. I remember the morning I found mine. I was only 42. I stared at it for what felt like an eternity, thinking my youth was suddenly slipping through my fingers. Funny how naive we can be, even in our 40s. What I wouldn't give now to go back and tell that worried 42-year-old woman that aging isn't the enemy she thought it would be, that some of my most vibrant, meaningful days were still ahead. Now, at 83, I've come to understand something profound that nobody tells you when you're young. There's a world of difference between getting older and aging poorly. They're not the same thing, not even close. And after 8 decades on this earth, watching some friends deteriorate rapidly while others remain vibrant well into their 90s, I've learned to recognize the subtle signs that your body is aging well. These aren't things you'll hear from those selling miracle creams or supplements. This is hard-earned wisdom from someone who's been paying close attention to life for a very long time. I remember sitting across from my dear friend Margaret at our favorite cafe just last spring. We started as nursing colleagues in the same hospital back in 1965, and we've been meeting for coffee every Tuesday morning for nearly 30 years now. Margaret just turned 85, 2 years older than me, but you'd never guess it watching her walk into that cafe, straight-backed, quick-stepped, eyes bright with curiosity. "How do you do it, Margaret?" I asked her that day, watching her easily read the menu without glasses, something I'd long since given up trying to do. She looked at me with that mischievous smile of hers and said, "Do what, Elizabeth?" "Order the same blueberry scone I've been getting for 3 decades." We laughed, but I pressed on. "No, how do you seem to be? Almost ageless. You move like someone 20 years younger." She set down her coffee cup and thought for a moment. "I don't think there's a secret, really. My body just seems to be aging differently than some folks we know. Dr. Jenkins says my markers are all excellent." That conversation with Margaret got me thinking deeply about the subtle signs that distinguish between simply getting older and aging well. And I realized that there are specific indicators, some obvious, others nearly invisible, that your body is aging gracefully rather than surrendering to decline. The first sign I've observed is the most telling, and it's something I noticed in my late husband Robert before he passed. It's your recovery time. How quickly your body bounces back from exertion or stress. Robert and I used to love hiking the mountain trails near our home in Colorado, even into his late 70s. He could spend a full day on those trails. Sure, he'd be tired afterward, but by the next morning, he was ready for our daily walk around the neighborhood. Meanwhile, our neighbor Thomas, 10 years younger than Robert, would need 3 days to recover from mowing his lawn. I remember one specific autumn afternoon when Robert and I had tackled a particularly challenging trail. We were 76 and 74 at the time. We'd pushed ourselves harder than usual, chasing the golden light through the aspen trees, wanting to reach the summit before sunset. That night, as we soaked our feet in warm water on the porch, Robert winced as he massaged his calves. "We may have overdone it today, Lizzie," he said, using that nickname I pretended to hate but secretly adored. "I think I might be feeling this one tomorrow." But come morning, there he was, putting on his walking shoes while I was still groaning about my stiff knees. "Ready for our morning constitutional?" he asked, bright-eyed and seemingly unaffected by yesterday's exertion. That's when it clicked. For me, his body wasn't just strong, it was resilient. It could handle stress and then recover quickly. I've seen this same pattern in virtually every person I know who's aged exceptionally well. They might get tired, sore, or even ill, but their bodies rally faster than most. Their systems bounce back like a spring rather than crumpling like paper. The second sign is something most people never connect with healthy aging, but I've observed it consistently across decades. It's stable weight without extreme effort. Now, I'm not talking about being skinny. That's a young person's misguided obsession. I'm talking about a body that naturally maintains a relatively consistent weight, without constant dieting or restriction. My sister-in-law Jana struggled with her weight her entire life, always on some new diet, losing 20 pounds only to gain back 30 by the time she hit 70. Her metabolism was so damaged from decades of yo-yo dieting that her weight fluctuated dramatically with even minor changes in her routine. Her body never found its balance, Contrast that with my friend Sophia, who just celebrated her 90th birthday with a vitality that astounds everyone who meets her. Sophia has never dieted a day in her life. She eats when she's hungry, stops when she's satisfied, enjoys rich foods in moderation, and has maintained roughly the same weight since her 40s. Her body found its natural set point and has the wisdom to stay there. I never understood all the fuss about food. Sophia told me once as we shared a piece of chocolate cake. At her birthday gathering, my mother taught me to eat what my body asks for, enjoy every bite, and then move on with my day. Food is meant to be pleasure and fuel, not a math equation. I've noticed that those who age well don't obsess about food or weight. Their bodies seem to have an innate intelligence about nourishment that maintains homeostasis without the mental gymnastics that exhaust so many people as they age. The third sign is the one that surprised me most when I first recognized it, but now seems so obvious: skin that heals quickly. I don't mean skin without wrinkles. Wrinkles are simply the map of a life well lived. I'm talking about how quickly small cuts, bruises, or irritations resolve themselves. When I was in my 70s, I volunteered at the community garden and often came home with small scratches or thorn pricks on my hands. I noticed that some of my fellow gardeners, particularly Edward, who was only 65, would still have visible marks weeks later, while mine would vanish within days. My doctor later explained that wound healing is one of the most reliable markers of overall health and cellular function. As we age, our healing capacity naturally slows, but those who maintain robust repair systems often show other signs of aging well. It's not about what your skin looks like. It's about how effectively it performs its biological function of repair and renewal. I remember when my granddaughter Ashley was visiting and accidentally knocked a hot cup of tea onto my arm. She was horrified, expecting a serious burn on her fragile grandmother. The redness faded within hours, and by the next day, you could barely tell anything had happened. "Grandma, that's not normal," she said, examining my arm with the scrutiny of her medical student training. "Most people your age would have a significant burn from that. Your skin is responding like someone decades younger." I hadn't thought much about it before that moment, but looking back at my family, I realized my mother had demonstrated the same resilience well into her 80s. It wasn't luck or good genes alone. It was a sign that, at a cellular level, our bodies maintained efficient repair systems longer than most. The fourth sign is perhaps the most underappreciated: consistent, restorative sleep without medication. In our prescription-happy culture, we've normalized the idea that older people naturally sleep poorly and need pills to get any rest at all. But I've observed something quite different among those who age exceptionally well. My brother-in-law Michael, who lived to be 97 with a mind sharp as a tack until the very end, slept like a contented cat his entire life. 7 hours, no more, no less, falling asleep within minutes of his head hitting the pillow and waking, naturally without an alarm. No sleep aids, no middle-of-the-night anxiety sessions, just pure, restorative rest. Sleep is when your body does its most important work, he used to say. Why would I interfere with that? Meanwhile, I watched countless friends struggle with insomnia as they aged, becoming dependent on stronger and stronger sleep medications that left them groggy and cognitively dulled during their waking hours. Their sleep wasn't truly restorative. It was chemically induced unconsciousness that didn't provide the deep repair their bodies needed. I noticed that those who maintained natural sleep patterns shared other commonalities. They typically had consistent daily routines, spent time outdoors each day, remained physically active, and didn't overconsume stimulants like caffeine. Their bodies knew how to downshift into rest mode because they worked with their natural rhythms, rather than fighting against them. The fifth sign of aging well is one that's easy to observe, but difficult to measure: a resilient digestive system. Nothing will age you faster than a gut that's in constant distress. I've watched too many friends become increasingly limited in their activities and enjoyment of life because their digestive systems became progressively more sensitive and unpredictable as they aged. My husband's cousin William developed such severe digestive issues in his 60s that he eventually refused to eat anywhere but home, missing family gatherings, travel opportunities, and simple pleasures like trying new restaurants. His world grew smaller and smaller as his digestive problems expanded. On the flip side, my friend Dorothy, who just turned 88, has traveled to 25 countries since retiring at 65, sampling street food from Thailand to Mexico without a hint of distress. Her robust digestive system isn't something she was born with. She intentionally cultivated it throughout her life by eating a diverse diet, never falling prey to extreme elimination diets, and including naturally fermented foods in her meals long before they became trendy. The gut is like a muscle, Dorothy told me once as we shared a spicy curry she'd fearlessly ordered. The more you exercise it with different foods, the stronger and more adaptable it becomes. People who eat the same 5 safe foods for decades are actually training their digestive systems to be inflexible. I've found her observation to be profoundly true. Those who age well typically maintain adventurous, varied eating patterns throughout their lives. Their microbiomes remain diverse and resilient rather than fragile and reactive. And finally, the sixth sign, the one that ties all the others together, is ongoing adaptability to stress. Not an absence of stress, mind you, but a body that responds appropriately to stressors and then efficiently returns to baseline. This shows up most visibly in stable vital signs. Blood pressure that doesn't spike dramatically under stress. A heart rate that increases appropriately during exertion, but quickly returns to normal. Steady blood sugar levels regardless of meal timing. I saw this clearly when my dear friend Susan and I both lost our husbands within months of each other in our 70s. We were both devastated. Of course, grief is not something a healthy body avoids feeling, but physiologically, our responses were dramatically different. Susan's blood pressure skyrocketed to dangerous levels. Her previously well-controlled diabetes became erratic. She developed shingles, then pneumonia. As her immune system buckled under the emotional strain, her body interpreted grief as a catastrophic threat, launching a cascade of inflammatory responses that took years to resolve. My experience, while emotionally just as painful, didn't trigger the same physical collapse. My sleep was disrupted for a few months. I lost some weight, but my vital signs remained stable. My annual checkup that year surprised even my doctor. "Your body isn't showing the stress I know you're under," Dr. Stevens said, reviewing my lab work. "Your markers are all within normal ranges despite everything you've been through." What I've come to understand is that a body that's aging well has efficient feedback systems. It responds to stressors appropriately. You want your heart rate to increase when you need to run across the street. You want your immune system to activate when you're exposed to a virus. But then it knows when to stand down. It doesn't get stuck in high alert mode, burning through resources and damaging tissues with chronic stress responses. These signs don't exist in isolation, of course. They're interconnected in ways that science is only beginning to understand. I've observed that when one system in the body maintains its resilience, others tend to follow suit. It's like a beautiful symphony where each instrument supports the others, you know. Growing older has given me a perspective that I could never have imagined in my younger years. I used to think that aging was simply a gradual decline, an inevitable slide toward frailty and limitation. How wrong I was. What I've discovered instead is that aging is more like a revealing, a process that strips away the non-essential and leaves behind the core of who you truly are. I think about my friend Richard, who just celebrated his 95th birthday by taking his great-grandchildren fishing. Richard was always a gentle, patient man, but those qualities have only deepened with age. "The older I get," he told me once, "the more I realize that kindness is the only thing that matters in the end." Richard embodies something I've noticed in many who age exceptionally well, a sense of purpose that transcends physical changes. His body remains strong not because he's fighting against time, but because he's fully engaged with life. He has reasons to get up each morning, people who count on his wisdom, and a curiosity about the world that keeps him mentally and physically active. I've come to believe that meaningful engagement is perhaps the hidden seventh sign of aging. Well, not just a mental attitude, but a physical reality that influences every cell and system. Our bodies seem to rise to the occasions we give them, maintaining function where it's regularly called upon. I think about these 6 signs often as I continue my own aging journey. They've helped me focus on the aspects of health that truly matter for quality of life, not just quantity of years. Because let me tell you something important. Living to 100 isn't a victory if those final decades are spent in misery, dependency, and disconnection. When I look at the friends I've been fortunate enough to keep into my 80s, the ones who are truly aging well share these markers. Their bodies respond and recover. They maintain homeostasis without extreme interventions. They heal efficiently. They sleep naturally. Their digestive systems remain adaptable. And their stress response systems function appropriately without getting stuck in overdrive. You know, I had a moment last week that nearly brought me to tears. I was playing with my great-granddaughter Emily in the park, down on my knees in the grass helping her collect special rocks for her collection. After about 20 minutes, I stood up without thinking much about it, brushing the grass from my pants. Emily looked at me with wide eyes and said, "Wow, great-grandma, you got up all by yourself without saying ouch like Grandpa always does." I laughed in the moment, but later that night, I thought about what a profound observation this 4-year-old had made. My son, who just turned 60, already groans and complains when changing positions, while I, at 83, can still transition from the floor to standing without drama. It's not because I'm in denial about my age or trying to prove anything. It's because my body has maintained its fundamental functionality in ways that make daily living comfortable and independent. That's what aging well truly means. Not looking young, that's a fool's errand that will always end in disappointment. Aging well means maintaining the physical capacities that allow you to fully participate in your life, whatever that means to you, without your body becoming the limiting factor in your experiences. I think about my mother's final years a lot these days. She lived to 91, but spent her last decade increasingly isolated as her energy diminished, and her world contracted. Her mind was sharp as ever, but her body couldn't keep up with her spirit. "I'm imprisoned in failing flesh," she told me once, a description so vivid and heartbreaking that it stayed with me all these years. I've been more fortunate, and I don't take it for granted. Every morning when I wake naturally after a restful night, every time I recover quickly from a minor illness, every day I maintain stable energy from morning until evening, I recognize these as the precious gifts they are. If you're watching this and you're still young, and yes, even 60 is young from where I'm standing, please know that many of the choices you make today will influence how your body ages decades from now. The resilience I enjoy at 83 wasn't random luck. It was built day by day through thousands of small decisions and habits. Movement that you enjoy enough to maintain consistently. Nourishment that genuinely feeds your cells, not just your taste, buds or emotions. Stress management that works with your nervous system, not against it. Connections that sustain your spirit through inevitable losses. Sleep routines that honor your body's need for repair. These aren't just wellness trends. They're the foundation of a body that will carry you comfortably through the decades. And if you're already in your golden years, it's never too late to support your body's natural capacity for resilience. I've seen remarkable transformations in friends who made significant changes in their 70s and beyond. The human body has an astonishing ability to respond positively to better conditions, even after decades of neglect. As I prepare to celebrate my 84th birthday next month, I find myself feeling immense gratitude for this body that has carried me through heartbreak and joy, through birth and death, through mundane Tuesdays and once-in-a-lifetime adventures. It bears the marks of its journey, the cesarean scar from bringing my first child into the world, the slightly crooked finger that never healed quite right after I slammed it in the car door in 1979, the laugh lines that record decades of finding humor even in difficult times. I wouldn't trade these marks of a life fully lived for the unwrinkled skin of youth, but I remain deeply grateful that beneath these visible signs of aging, my body continues to function with a resilience that allows me the greatest privilege of all, continuing to engage fully with the people and experiences I love, without my physical limitations defining my days. That, my friends, is what aging well truly means. Not fighting against the natural progression of years, but moving through them with a body that remains a capable and comfortable home for your spirit. Look for these 6 signs in yourself: recovery capacity, stable weight without struggle, efficient healing, restorative sleep, digestive resilience, and appropriate stress responses, and nurture them with your daily choices. Your future self, whether that's you at 70, 80, or beyond, will thank you for the gift of a body that continues to serve you well, long after your hair has silvered and your skin has softened. With the gentle passage of time, thank you for listening to an old woman's reflections today. May your own aging journey be kind to you, and may you recognize the quiet miracle that is a body that ages not just with longevity, but with lasting resilience and function.